Now let us compare the sociology of M.N. Srinivas and sociology of A.R Desai. So we will try to look into some 9 to 10 points which are the major points of differences, how MNS that is M.N. Srinivas stands different from A.R Desai, how their works are mostly contrasting, because M.N. Srinivas's work focuses on structure functionalist methodology, whereas A.R Desai is focusing on Marxist methodologies. Now these two approaches are generally opposite or antithetical of each other. Now let us try to compare and contrast the sociology of M.N. Srinivas with sociology of A.R Desai. Firstly, हमने देखा था कि M.N. Srinivas he deals in contextual understanding of, this is of here you can write F, right? He talks about the contextual understanding of Indian society. That is, he is basically focusing on context. He is analyzing, studying and introspecting various contexts. For example, while conducting field studies of Rampura, he is focusing on the social context of Rampura, the localized context of Rampura. He argues that the village is a bounded, limited concrete space. And when he studies Kurgs, he studies the localized context of Kurgs, right, which was a mountainous region that we studied. So he is talking about a particular context which he is studying. Whereas A.R Desai had an historical understanding of Indian society. He is focusing on context, and there is some sort of historical understanding that you can find in M.N. Srinivas's works also, but he neglects history. Historical understanding of Indian society and M.N. Srinivas's work is lacking. Whereas A.R Desai, we talked about that he adopted a dialectical historical approach. He is tracing the history of Indian society through the three stages or the three modes of production that we just now took a look into. So he is dealing in historical understanding of Indian society. So this is the first point. Second point is that M.N. Srinivas's sociology is micro-sociology. He is studying a particular village. He is developing a micro-anthropological insight because he is studying that village using participant observation. And on the basis of this micro-anthropological insights, he is developing some macro generalizations. Some macro concepts he talked about, like Sanskritization, Westernization, dominant caste, vote banks, Ajgar politics, secularization. Now these are very limited concepts. These concepts have limited generalizations. So macro concepts like Sanskritization, Westernization, dominant caste, with limited generalizations and limited abstractions. Whereas A.R Desai focuses on building of grand or mega theories, building macro concepts having a much higher level of abstraction, much higher level of generalization as compared to the generalization and abstraction that could be seen in Srinivas's sociological works. So he adopted macro sociology, that is grand or mega theory building, and that is why in his works you will find linkage, analysis and understanding of macro concepts. For example, as we just studied about colonialism, capitalism, nationalism, Indian state, peasant struggles, these are broad macro concepts. Class, relations of production. M.N. Srinivas sociology is academic sociology. It was basically limited to academic circles. It was not an activist sociology. And it was also developmental sociology. Development sociology in the sense that by studying various villages, by engaging in field studies, a sociologist could truly depict the conditions that are prevailing at the level of villages, could more accurately predict the various demands of the villagers, the various aspirations of the villagers. He could study the context in a much more detailed manner because he is conducting field studies. He is living among the villagers for an year or so. He is participating in their social life through participant observation method. So we have a more in-depth and qualitative understanding of villages. Now we can give policy formulations, whereas the economists or the people who are part of the planning commissions, these are the elites who are sitting in their AC rooms, in their big chairs. They have an armchair understanding of Indian society. They are far distant and removed from the real aspirations, the real demands, the real concerns of the Indian people. And if we can conduct a large number of village studies, we can actually contribute to the policy formulation and even policy feedback. What is the impact of the developmental programs like PRIs, community development programs at the ground level? So it is also developmental sociology as well. Whereas हमने देखा कि A.R Desai sociology is activist sociology. M.N. Srinivas argues for value neutrality, empiricism, objectivity, a collection of facts and data. So he is mainly concerned about pure academic research, whereas in A.R Desai sociology, we just discussed, he is engaged in praxis. That a sociologist should not just be a researcher, he is also a preacher, a social activist. So he was against value neutrality and against value fact dichotomy in sociology. Then M.N. Srinivas, he basically adopted structural functionalist methodology, and in this methodology basically M.N. Srinivas developed a consensual, functional and harmonic view of Indian society. How different parts of the Indian society, different sub-parts of the Indian society, they are working in sync, in harmony, in integration with each other. At the level of village, you will find unity, consensus and harmony within the village. So therefore he neglected conflict and violence within the villages. हमने FG Valley पढ़ा था, ठीक है? So M.N. Srinivas' sociology promotes consensual, functional and harmonic view of Indian society, where there is an integration between different parts of where there is harmony or synergy between different parts of the Indian social system. So now this is important. M.N. Srinivas calls the Marxist view or Marxist sociology of A.R Desai, आप इसको critique में भी लिख सकते हैं, ठीक है? Critique में this is one of the points of criticism of A.R Desai, that Marxist view a disruptive view of Indian society. They are promoting a large scale revolutionary changes. They are trying to bring in a new social order. They are trying to overthrow the present social order, and they are trying to launch various sorts of rebellions, movements, bringing the workers, peasants together and trying to overthrow the present state. So this sociology is a revolutionary sociology. It is a disruptive view of Indian society. It promotes anarchy, crisis, chaos and disruptions in Indian society. So this is something that he despised about Marxist sociology, that it wants to bring in change, it wants to bring in a complete new social order. Not just reforming the society, but re-altering the social structure, re-altering the social order and bringing in a complete new social order. So they want to bring in change which can't be accommodated or properly handled. So they can cause anarchy, disruptions and chaos. Whereas A.R Desai हमने देखा था, instead of consensual view, A.R Desai's view is dialectical view of Indian societies. That how social change can be talked about or can be brought about by conflict. It is conflict which is leads to social change. It is the dialectics which leads to social change. It is the contradictions which lead to social change. For example, how Indian nationalism emerged, which was a product of dialectics between the Indians and the British. So focus is on contradictions in Indian society, just like Marx. Right? How there are contradictions between the ruling class and the subject class, and how the subject class can be collectively mobilized. All the workers will be coming together and will be overthrowing the capitalist system, and they will be bringing a new social order, a new mode of production. So focus is on contradictions in Indian societies. For example, he studied peasant struggles, Naxalite movements, student movements. This is something, all these movements, they are well researched in A.R Desai's sociological works. Right? He studied all these movements. So he was basically focusing on protest and movements. तो हमने देखा था कि structural functionalists talk about incremental social change, small social change, gradual social change which is reformatory, which will bring in reform and not revolution. which will change the social order for its betterment, just reform the social order. It will not bring a completely new social order, a completely new social structure, a completely new mode of production. Rather, we can do some minor changes, minor increments, slowly and gradually and incrementally, we will be evolving into a much better society. So incremental reformatory social change, which is basically slow and gradual. So critique जो है, अब M.N. श्रीनिवास के जो critique है उनको status quoist बोलते हैं, because it focuses on what? It focuses on maintenance of social order, integration and harmony between different parts. It focusing on equilibrium in society. Whereas A.R Desai seeks a revolutionary social change, alter social order, bring in a completely new social order and replace capitalist mode of production. Then M.N. Srinivas का जो work है और sociology है, it is more pro-state, it is more pro-Indian state, it is more pro-authorities. Why? Because he wanted, through his developmental sociology, he wanted to assist the state, he wanted to assist the state for the betterment of Indian society. He had a confidence in the capability of the Indian state, and if it can be assisted by the sociologist, we can give proper policy formulations and policy feedback, then we can work, the academicians can work in sync with the state to bring the necessary and desirable and reformatory and incremental and gradual social change in India and making the society better. So it is more pro-state and pro-authority, guiding them in policy formulations, policy feedback. और इसका result आपको देखने को मिलेगा. Since it was more pro-state, his work was more pro-state, M.N. Srinivas became a member of University Grant Commission. Now it is very difficult to become a member, since M.N. Srinivas was an intellectual giant of Indian sociology, then he had to be on one of the members of the University Grant Commission. Plus he was also a member of ICASSR, that is Indian Council of Social Science Research. So he was given appropriate, you can say, reward for his contributory sociology for assisting the state. Whereas if you see, Marxists are basically anti-state. They challenge the authority. They are highly critical of it. We studied how, especially in post-independent India, how A.R Desai says that under the garb of socialist state, that state projects itself as socialist, this is basically a false class consciousness, whereas under the garb or under the cloth of socialism, they are basically in the deep structure you will find the state to be capitalist, to be supporting the capitalists. Inequalities are increasing, and 2 decades of hope, that is when we gained independence, we were hopeful that we will be eliminating poverty, we will be eliminating inequality, we will be following the socialist model of development, and thereby we will make everyone prosperous, everyone happy. But this is something which has not happened, and you can see how various Naxalite movements emerged, peasant struggles emerged, student movements are emerging. People are really discontented with how the governance is going on. So the system is such, the social order is such, social structure is such that the state is in collusion or cahoots with the capitalists. As against the European capitalism or British capitalism, these capitalists are weaker. So state being stronger is actually supporting the development and growth of capitalists till they can stand on their legs. Now they are undernourished, they are malnutrition, they are in the baby or nascent phase, they are not able to stand on their legs. So they are supporting the capitalists. So this is something that we can see in his works. He was basically anti-state, especially he talks about Indian state and he labels it as a bourgeois or capitalist state, the post-independent state, whereas as we see that Indian state initially was socialist. Now how is this possible? This is what he argues, that under the garb of socialism, you are basically promoting capitalism. So he was anti-state and he challenges the authority. He was highly critical of the state. Therefore Marxists, if you will see, in 1950s or 60s, there was a high peak of structural functionalism. There are large-scale field studies that were conducted in Indian sociology, and how we talked about how it contributed to the growth and maturity of the Indian sociology. Whereas the Marxists were adopting Marxist approach, they were sidelined, they were marginalized. They did not, their view was not dominating. If you see the academic circles, they were sidelines, they were marginalized. Marxist view in 1950s did not constitute a dominant view of Indian sociology, of academic circles, and they were also sidelined as far as giving various benefits or access to various government institutions for being for example, being a member of UGC or being a member of ICSSR. They were not well represented in government policy formulations, circles or think tanks or institutions. So Marxists were sidelined. They were not dominant in shaping government policies. They were even marginalized in academic circles. The Marxist perspective was not a dominant perspective in 1950s or the 60s. Another point of difference, which is a very important point of difference, that M.N. Srinivas's sociology focuses on cultural factors. How caste and religion, these being the cultural factors, profoundly and deeply shaped all the aspects of Indian society. Now this is also going to be one of the critique of M.N. Srinivas. I think I have not, maybe or maybe not, I have not mentioned in the critiques of M.N. Srinivas. In the one of the first lectures of M.N. Srinivas was talking about methodology of M.N. Srinivas or methodology of structural functionalism. In there, the critique I talked about some 5 to 6 points. So you can add this point also, that from the point of view that Marxists are going to argue, they are overemphasizing on the cultural factors and they are ignoring the economic factors. So अब ये जो है, अब इनका जो पॉइंट है वो इनका क्रिटिक बन जाएगा. फर्स्ट क्रिटिक वी टॉक्ड अबाउट ऑफ दिस A.R Desai. This is the another critique, how it focuses on only economic factors. It neglects cultural factors, and cultural sectors like caste and religion, how deeply and profoundly shape Indian society. Caste is a very integral part of Indian society. Religion is a very integral part of Indian society. People identify themselves on the basis of their caste and religion. They marry themselves among each other on the basis of caste and religion. Caste profoundly shape the Indian politics. Casteism lies in the consciousness or cognitive structures of the Indian people. So we cannot neglect caste and religion in sociology, but this is something that they neglected. This is one of the critique of A.R Desai, that they focus on economic factors like classes or mode of production, which basically they think that they profoundly shape Indian society, and thereby they are neglecting cultural factors. Now there is a one point of similarity between Marxism and structural functionalism. Both advocate for sociology for India, that we can use either structural functionalism or Marxism in order to study and understand Indian society and its different facets. So we can use Western theoretical models, apply these models to suit to Indian context, amend and modify these models, and they should not be blind adaptation and adaptation of these models in order to study Indian society. So both argue for sociology for India, and that too amended and modified Western theoretical models. So this is a point of similarity, the sociology for India studying Indian society using Western theoretical models.